Welcome to Something to Talk About, our daily check-in here at the Senior Community Center that we've been doing for a year plus now. And we have a variety of topics. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, the Senior Community Center, because we have been working with the city of Bainbridge Island to look at ways to make the Senior Community Center more welcoming, more accessible. And we are teaming with the city to put together a project that will play itself out in the next year to make some changes to the center. So with us is Mark Epstein, who is a program manager with the city, engineering manager, and Bill Luria, who is the board president of the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, and Eleanor Weinel, who is also on the board and has been working on this committee, a retired architecture professor. She has brought her skills to the project as well. Thank you all three for being here this morning.
Glad to be here.
Yep. Bill, why don't you start us off just by talking a little bit about what the goals of this project are and our role as the senior center in it.
Okay, how about a little history? For those of you who know the center, know that there are issues about accessibility. There are issues about safety and security. So we began a discussion with the city to talk about what we could do to begin to do some renovations to deal with accessibility, safety, and security. We have agreed as a board of directors to contribute to that effort, and it is about to start. Mark Epstein, who will be managing the project, is here to tell us where we stand with the renovation project. Mark, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that was my cue. I thought maybe you were still talking.
No, just do it quick because I really wanted to turn it over to you to talk about where we stand, what's planned, and the timing of all this.
So maybe I'll just do, if I can present a couple slides, and I'll just talk about some of what's been done in the past and where we are now. So can you all see that?
It's coming up, yeah. Okay.
So just a little bit of the background. In May 2018, the city commissioned basically an assessment of all their buildings, and which included the senior center. And so we got some deficiencies identified in that. And in 2019, the senior center staff identified this renovation plan, which I think most of you are familiar with. If you're not, I'll show you. I think it's been revealed that that's Eleanor's drawing. Is that right? The concept sketch? Okay. And in 2020, we estimated we estimated some of the costs of doing that renovation project, and went to city council, and with the senior center contributions, that project's been approved in the capital facilities plan, and we are moving forward with it now. This is just some of the photos that were taken from 2018, showing some of the deficiencies in the fire alarm system, some missing insulation in the top right. The heat pump's a little bit undersized in the bottom left, and sort of updating and upgrading kitchen appliances were identified in that. We identified some costs. I'm not going to go into numbers too much. This is the concept sketch that Eleanor presented, and Eleanor could talk about her sketch, I guess, might be appropriate for that to go through what some of those things were identified.
That'd be great.
So Eleanor, how about a quick rundown of what we're doing?
Okay, I'm going to start by saying if I had known that. I'm going to start by saying that if I had known this sketch was going to live so long, I would have made it better. I think that we had essentially 3 levels of thinking in terms of the renovation. The first of which was to address the deficiencies, to make the building more usable, if that's the right word, in terms of accessibility, of all kinds, including, for instance, things like a hearing loop in Huney Hall, so that all of the ADA issues we're addressing are not seen in the plan. The next level had to do with the activities of the center. And the big need there was for more space. And the question is, how do you get more space without adding on? And our take, and when I say our, there were a number of people who were involved at various stages, members of the center and the staff, in terms of identifying these needs. So you move things around is the short answer. And so what you see in the sketch, for those of you who haven't seen it before, where if you can identify where walls are red, for instance, I'm pointing to it with my pointer just as so you could see that. Those are walls that are coming out. So the area in the upper left-hand corner, which is the thrift store, is seen as taking over the offices and effectively doubling its space. Another area of concern was the entrance. People feeling that the entrance was not as inviting or accommodating as it might be, that, for instance, you come in the front door and the information desk is not the first thing you see. You have to turn around a corner to see the desk. So, oh, that's the entry that you're seeing in the upper left here. Yeah, that you have to turn around the corner in order to see that. So the proposal is to remove that area and all the walls up to the entrance into the lounge or living room, and to move the information desk to the, I'm trying to get to the north wall, so you see it right as you come in the door. Also, the columns that are there at the entrance to Huney Hall were seen by virtually everyone as a hazard and B, unnecessary. So those are being removed to open up that whole space going into Huney Hall. Minor change of storage space within Huney Hall. And then the next area had to do with what is now the conference room on the east side, and simply to make that larger, which would also then allow us to take out walls in the area to the right of that, to open up that area that's currently by the fireplace there. And then finally, to remove walls and open up the space on the far right-hand side to accommodate all of the offices for the senior center.
So we should note that there
was
were
pretty quick, but I hope that was clear.
That was wonderful. We should note that some of the recommendations by the Meng organization, which was pricing this, indicated that it might actually be less expensive to remove the fireplace than to move the wall that is listed there in the conference room, because there's electrical in that wall. We thought when we were talking about it that cutting out a huge old fireplace might be cost prohibitive, but it turns out that moving electrical wires might be even more so. So there might be some changes like that that get adjusted as we get to the final planning phase.
Okay, and maybe I'll pick up on this before we get back to Mark.
Well, thank you.
Oh, Eleanor, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Reed, for pointing that out. And I would not also be surprised if, when the architects get into it and start doing things for real, that is with measured drawings and care, that they may find some other recommendations that they might make.
The city sent out a request for qualifications. Two firms sent in their qualifications. We evaluated them, us, Eleanor, myself, and Mark in the city, and we did select a architectural firm to begin this. So Mark, maybe I turn it over to you to pick up with the recommendation to go with one of the firms.
Sure. This was just last week or the week before is when we did the evaluation of the statement of qualifications. We received two, one from Coates Design, a local architecture firm on the island, and Ankrum Moyson Architects, who have a specialty in senior care and senior facilities. So both firms, excellent firms, been around for a while, have a good reputation. It was a unanimous decision of our selection panel to go with Coates Design. So they've been notified, and they're actually starting work this week in trying to gather information to develop a scope and fee, a scope of work, which will be the basis of the contract. So we're trying to get that part done this week, so we have a sort of firm scope, which we'll working with Bill and Eleanor very closely on that, as well as we will be throughout this project. And then hopefully we'll get a contract to City Council for approval by at their April 27th business meeting. That's our goal. So we'll get them officially started hopefully by the end of April. And then the schedule running out is figuring most of the spring and summer and maybe into the fall as well in doing the design work and getting all the drawings done and the permitting done, with a goal of getting construction started pretty quickly in the first quarter of next year, 2021.
Okay, let me just pick up on that. There were two reasons that I think the selection committee picked Coates Design. One, they're a local firm, and it'd be nice to have a local firm. But secondly, that I remember that was key to my recommendation was that they spent a number of minutes talking about keeping our programs and services in operation while all the renovations go on. And I think that for our membership is really critical. And I don't know, Mark, has Coates gotten further into how we will maintain our programs and our services while all this construction goes on?
No, that'll happen way farther down the line. Before we sort of have to know what we're going to be doing first, and they'll be coming up with a plan to stage those improvements. But yeah, that was an important part, not only for senior center operations, but also for emergency hub operations. So when we were talking with Meng during their analysis phase, they did come up with some suggestions about how we could phase the construction so that the senior center would only have to close for maybe a day, I think maybe 2 days at the most. And that was really only when the fire alarm, fire suppression systems are taking offline for renovations, because the building obviously can't be inhabited without the fire suppression systems.
And Reed, do you want to pick up on that?
Well, I can say a little bit about what that discussion looked like, and Eleanor was part of that as well. We talked about the idea that if you were to start, say, with renovating the East Wing, which most of the senior center members don't have occasion to use right now, Katie Auger, the community navigator, uses one office down there that used to be the Smile Partners office, and the bookkeeper uses the other office. So they're underutilized spaces. If they were to look at starting down there and opening it up, then it would allow for us to move the senior center office down into that area, and then we're out of the way here, allowing for changes here. There might be ways that we could work with alternative entry points while they're working through the front door, and just what one of the things Coates said was, we're very familiar with setting up plastic and working to close off areas that we're working on when we're working in community buildings, which they reported they had done a lot of.
Reed, would you also bring up the hearing loop?
And I would also add that
Eleanor, I just asked Reed to follow up on that, the hearing loop issue.
Yeah.
So we asked for permission from the city to reach out to Bainbridge Community Foundation. We had done some research on an induction hearing loop, which is the kind of hearing loop that you can use if you have a T-coil in your hearing aids, which most people are getting these days, which allows you to get the advantage of a hearing assistance system without having to check out additional equipment. It also is comfortable to people who might feel embarrassed about asking for hearing assistance because you've already got it on your ear. And the initial sort of, not really a bid, but an estimate that we got indicated it would cost a little more than $5,000. And to extend the service to the community, we thought that it was a worthwhile project to look for grant funding for. And so right now it's before the Bainbridge Community Foundation as our application for an accessibility grant with the acknowledged permission of the city council to do that. So when that comes up for a community vote, I hope to see all of you supporting the idea of giving a little to extend this program, because as we know, once you start a construction project, we're not trying to increase the scope, but the cost could still surprise us even without increasing the scope. Isn't that right, Mark?
That's always the case with construction, especially renovation projects. We don't know what we're going to find until we start tearing things apart.
So we'd be happy to have a little help with that. Bill?
I just wonder, any questions from any of the participants here today? To either Mark, myself, or Reed about
Or Eleanor.
Or Eleanor, yeah, about the renovation project?
I don't answer questions. I only lecture. I don't answer questions.
Jim Hayner has raised his hand. Jim, you'll need to unmute. There you go. Oh my gosh. I don't know why. You might want to log out and log back in again, I guess, because I see that you're unmuted, but I'm not hearing your voice.
While we're waiting, anyone else?
Well, I will ask a question. What do we think about the goals of this? In other words, what are we hoping seniors will enjoy as a result of this work? The seniors and the community, I suppose, because it is a community hub and emergency hub. So anyone want to take that one?
Well, I'll take part of it and say that I think that the center should seem more easily navigated. That not that it's a huge building, but that on coming in for the first time or the 105th time, it's easier to find out where you're going, not just because of where things are, but because of surface treatments, things that don't show up in the plan, for instance, like changing flooring. To make walkers and wheelchairs easier to move around. Some of it has to do with painting, oddly enough, so that some things are more visible than they may be at the present time, especially to those of us whose eyes are not as young as they used to be.
Great. Jim, do you want to try again? You need to unmute. Okay, we're not hearing, but did you have a comment, Bill?
No, I just want to say that Barbara had a question. Barbara Golden?
Yeah, she was asking, what is the relationship with the city? In other words, I'm guessing, what does the memorandum of understanding hold? How will decisions be made, and how does this cooperative agreement work?
Well, I could take a first stab at that, and then Reed, you can sort of add in. But we're, from the city point of view, we're seeing the community center as a full partner in the project. So no decisions are going to be made without the senior center representatives. Well, Bill and Eleanor have been identified as that. So every meeting with our consultants, they'll be a part of that. They're sharing in the cost of the renovations, so you have all the rights and responsibilities of the project. And I guess one of the goals I always have as a project manager is to make sure that the client's needs are prominent and take the most weight of decisions that they get made. So there will be, I'm sure, having to make some tough decisions about things to give up or things to move around in terms of the budget that we have available. And yeah, I think those things are, the city will have some priorities and what those decisions are, but I think the senior center's wishes and desires and needs will come first.
Our memorandum
Mark,
of understanding. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead. Finish up, Reed.
Our memorandum of understanding, which is the agreement that Bill signed on our behalf with the city, does indicate the city's the primary lead in the project. So if there is a decision that has to be made and there isn't consensus, the city will be in a position to make that decision. It is their building. We have enjoyed a rent-free lease since the start, actually, of the senior center for one reason or another, basically due to the kind of participation that we've had as an organization, just like now, helping to contribute to improvements to the building, et cetera. But as Mark said, the spirit is to try to avoid a situation where the city and the seniors are at loggerheads, that we would try to work through that and come to some agreement rather than have to force a decision.
Mark, let me ask you, can you give us a sense of when you think the actual physical construction will begin?
It'll be sometime in the first quarter. So I'm guessing, it's just a guess at this point. I'm thinking maybe February, March at the latest, 2021.
Well, we're past February and March. I'm just wondering.
Of next year.
2022.
Oh, did I say 2021? Oh, I'm so last year. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2022. Thanks for that.
So you think actual physical work will begin early next year?
Early next year.
Okay.
That's a better way to put
it. Yes, well, we're just kind of writing 2020 off the book, so I can understand why you might.
Yeah, I lost that year.
And 2021, you guys get a year straight.
Yeah,
there we go. Well, I think this is actually going to be a wonderful project. It's limited in scope. The idea is not to try to, redesign our perfect senior center. It's to make the senior center, the community center that we have, more usable. It was designed, it was upgraded. The West Wing was upgraded about 10 years ago with a similar arrangement between the city and the senior community center. But at that point, the Park District was operating the building, and there was a dental program that was running out of the East Wing, and the nonprofit had an office in one area, and the Park District had an office in another area. And so those needs have changed, which allows us to use the same space more efficiently, and I hope allows us to more easily schedule programs throughout the center. I know that one of the things that we would start to squeeze people into the conference room on the East Wing for the Shakespeare classes, looking more like a Japanese subway than anything else. And if we could make that room a little bit bigger, it would be more commodious for all of us. So that's just one minor example of the idea of trying to use the existing space with a little modification more effectively.
And Reed, as a preamble to the construction, it'll begin early next year. You want to bring us up to speed on the landscaping that's going on in front?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had talked with the city about was this is in our mind, a refresh project, which means just to brighten, lighten, and make more accessible the existing property. We have the lovely benefit of having Ann Lovejoy on our board of directors, and she has helped us identify some planting and helped us line up some donations of those plants. we've managed to clear out the garden landscaping plot right in front of the center there, and now it's ready with some help from City Public Works to get some compost and topsoil. And on Earth Day, we're planning to put in some of the donated plants. We'll need to be careful watering them this year, but they're designed to be drought tolerant. So over the course of a couple of years, they won't need a lot of regular maintenance. And along the east windows of the east wing, we're planning to take out some of the shrubbery that is there. Some of that will actually move into the garden in front of the landscape in front of the center. And we're going to put in some raised stock troughs, stock tanks that we will use as raised beds that seniors who are interested in can help garden. And so that will be a easy way for us to contribute as a community to making the center lovely. If you are interested in participating in one of those raised beds, let us know. Great. Sheila, did you have something to say, or were you just talking to yourself?
No, I'm absolutely amazed and joyful about all of this. I'm just shaking my head saying, wow, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, it was a great community effort. I'm glad the city was able to help out, and that the senior center was able to basically through savings that we've acquired through bequests, be in a position to be able to participate in this. So we're grateful for that. Okay, I see two Jim Hainers, and one of them is raising their hand. Let's see if he can unmute. Boy, we're having a hard time. I know that normally, Jim, you have had no problem.
Lawrence, I see you have a question.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, and this is Bonnie, and
Oh, Bonnie, yeah.
that's okay. I was wondering, in reading about political situations going on and things on the island, and there's been quite a bit of talk and things written about making the island more welcoming in terms of diversity. And I wondered if anything was thought about in terms of making the senior center, in terms of diversity, more welcoming.
I can start that. I know that's been a key element of Bill's interest as president, but our focus on this was, I think, more on accessibility, on that form of welcoming. So things like the painting that Eleanor talked about, and the hearing aid, and the idea of removing obstacles from uneven floors, or those columns in the front have little black stools, or I don't know what you call them, pedestals that they sit on. They're little plinths. Thank you. Plinths.
You're welcome.
Which are hard to see because they look just like the floor. So you could, if you had vision problems, you might trip over them. The purpose of all that, obviously, is so that the center can be accommodating of all kinds of activities. And I do know that the senior center and the members of its board have been working hard. We have an inclusion study group, as you're aware, Bonnie, that has been meeting regularly to try to address some of these issues. And in fact, tomorrow we're going to talk about bias. Ann Lovejoy is going to lead us in a conversation about unconscious bias and how it influences us. And I would hope that if there are elements of this plan that somebody sees that might sort of unconsciously embrace bias, or send a signal that is not welcoming to everyone, that they would raise that issue, because we certainly don't want to build in infrastructure that is not welcoming.
Well, and Reed, the inclusion study group had a subcommittee, and I think the group as a whole that has looked at ways through signage and or elements put into the entry area to let people know that everyone is welcome at the senior center, at the building in this facility. So, it may be a small thing, but it's at least a step in saying there is a concern for those issues.
I suppose another thing I could do is run the project by the Race Equity Advisory Committee, see if they have any suggestions. The project probably will go through a number of city committees. Well, the Design Review Board, I think, will be one. I don't think they'll have any jurisdiction over it per se. I don't think, because we don't have any land use issues, we don't have to follow the Design Review Board recommendations, but they're always a good resource, I think, in helping us make better choices. And the other committee is the Climate Change Advisory Committee, which has already expressed interest. In fact, we're going to use the Senior Center project as a pilot project for a climate change certification tool. This is a new tool that was recommended by the Climate Change Advisory Committee members. And so it's not the best project for this type of tool, but I think it still will it's a way to test it out, and I think it still will have some advantages. So a couple of interesting things going on.
Bill, any final thoughts?
No, I think we've been working on this for a couple of years now, so we're really excited about it actually taking place.
And certainly, if anybody has any comments as they're thinking about this, please feel free to send a note to me, Reed, at biseniorcenter.org. And I'm happy to make sure that all the participants are aware of your observations, concerns, or interests. I'm really excited about this too, and I think that although it's taken a while, I think that there's interest by both the city and the senior center to move as quickly and judiciously as possible to get this done. And early next year is going to be here before we know it anyway.